Okay, we continue with Reishis Chochma. We need him to give us your Shema. Help us do tshuva, right? And and we need discuss of all the zars that he quotes, right? So now he just quoted a zayar that talks about that the reason why you have to learn Torah Yomam V'Laila. You know what? To know how to serve Hashem. So it's again his thesis at the Ikar Limud Torah is Lilmod Amanas La'aso. So that's the whole definition of Torah Lishma, and that's really what makes the Torah learning such a powerful koach. Not it has its own merit, but it also Amanas La'aso that it facilitates all the doing of all the mitzvahs, and that's how you should learn with that conviction. All right, so I'll just I'll just recap the last word of the paragraph that we did yesterday. This Zohar that we just quoted is that it says openly that being Isaac in Torah day and night, the chiyuv of Talmud Torah is constant. Why is it constant? Because you need to be constantly engaged in Torah to know how to properly serve our Kodesh Baruch Hu. So therefore, that means it's Almanas Lasos. That's why it's like Yisrael to know how to serve our Kodesh Baruch Hu. So now he goes in the paragraph that we begin with tonight. He goes deeper into this. Vatam, and the reason is Kishigas Talmud Ole Zadon. To make a mistake in learning, could cause doing things wrong, even b'mezid. So you made a mistake in the way you learn, right? But you could end up being because of that discrepancy and inaccuracy of coming to do averos b'mezid. Therefore, you have to be so careful. You have to learn Torah day and night. Not stop to be engaged in Torah study, but to know Torah well, so you don't make a mistake. And that's why shower learning, day and night. It's better. That's not the point. The Indian of being learning day and night is to be proficient in learning, like we've been talking about. Which involves obviously a certain minimal level of iyun, and you to constantly engage in order to be proficient and not come to a mistake. Va'od, and also shafil yechacham garo b'tikun asiyas ha'maaseh. So now let's say you already know how to do the mitzvahs technically. Let's say you learned Kitzur Shulchan Aruch as an example, right? You learned Mishnah Torah, you learned Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch Ramon. You know how to be Mekayim the mitzvahs. You know how to do it even well with all the details. But the more you're engaged in Torah study of learning, how to do the mitzvahs be'iyun, you will know the secret of how to do it, correctly, meaning it's two things, right? Right, it's two things. That's right. First of all, there are a lot of details al pi Kabbalah that the halacha leaves a gray area for. And that's why you see the poskim often bring from Zohar and Kisvei Ari. So al pi Sod, you even get to further refine how to do the mitzvah even better. But that's A. B is that also so that tikkun asiyasa, right? Is Yotar Baba Gasod is also kavanas to be mechaven, since the difference that the mitzvah makes. So adding that kavana makes the mitzvah more potent, right? So it comes out, right? So it comes out that the more you know the seidus, which enhances the tikkun that the mitzvah makes. As he goes on, he explains this point quite well right now. So he says like this. Right, the epitome, the highest level of learning Torah is to know the secret of Shir Koma. Shir Koma is an expression that talks about the construct of reality. Let's just leave it at that for our purposes. The construct of reality, because if you understand the construct of reality, the map of reality. You know how mitzvahs make a difference and where they make a difference. And that's what kavana really means. Kavana means to take aim. Kavana, not to be confused with machshava. Take aim. The mitzvah is supposed to reach there and make a difference there, right? So he brings already from the midrashim, in the Bryce of Rabbi Shmuel, it's brought in Medrash Mishlei on the pasuk Orach Chaim Shomer Musar Tochachas Mata, the path for life for one who keeps Musar, right? The path of life for one who keeps Musar, upholds ethics. Path of life for one who upholds ethics. Was it Tochachas Mata, the one who abandons hearing, who hears abandoning hearing Musar, hearing rebuke, and hearing being corrected. Mata, he goes off. He goes wayward. V'amar Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Shmuel, in connection to the Medrash bringing this pasuk, says, "Ki b'yom shol adam imasuk b'mikra," right? On Judgment Day. Oh man, my Rabbi Moshe Shapiro used to always stick this in our faces and tell us to get serious with our learning, because on Judgment Day they ask a person, "Imasuk b'mikra," first did you learn Tanakh? Bim Yada, she says, and ask you also if you know the 6 orders of the Mishnah. The Yada Torah's going to ask you more. You know Safra, Torah's Kohanim, the Midrash Halacha on Torah on the Sefer Vayikra. The Yada going, and after that ask you, do you know Gemara? V'zel Shana. And now at this point he's now quoting directly from the Lashon of the Medrash. Nefesh Chaim brings this also. Why know Agada says so? Akash asked you, did you learn? But did you really learn Gemara? Why don't you learn Gemara? All the rivers go into the ocean, but the ocean is never full. Reishis said, what's that referring to? What's that ocean? It's never full. Gemara. That's the Gemara. Now, of course, it's not talking about art scrolls. It's about when you really learn Gemara, and you really understand the depth of the Shakla V'Tarya. Gemara Be'iyun is like the most, and Gemara Be'iyun also means that the Gemara itself, you go into the science of the Shakla V'Tarya and why the Gemara's next move was this and it wasn't something else. Why did Gemara argue in this direction? Why not in that direction? Why does the Gemara really accept this and reject that? Going into the depth of that. That is the bottomless pit of Torah. That's the ocean that never gets filled. All right, so don't make Gemara into a comic book. Really, it's learn in a manner that you get a certain feel of how it's the Yam Sheinenu Mole. Right? Can't talk about that enough. Right, all right. So someone who actually really learned Gemara, we're not art scroll and not Dafyomi, I'll leave it to art scroll, but really learn Gemara, in a sense that you could feel how the Gemara is the Yam Sheinenu Mole, the ocean that never gets filled. So someone who's even on that level, you did Gemara, so now when you really do Gemara like you're supposed to, right? So aside from having a encyclopedic knowledge, you also know how to properly reason, how to handle, if you really connected your mind with the mind of Gemara, how the Gemara builds proofs and how the Gemara roots out falsehoods and, shows how something is, even 10 steps down the line would be incorrect, right? So if you have that type of logical power assimilated in your head, so now comes a time that why don't you learn Maisa Merkav? Did you look at the Merkav? Did you look at my greatness? Right, so I have no, because Hashem says, I have no pleasure from my world except that the Torah are Isaac in Torah. And they peek and they look into this great Talmud, this great Gemara, because Ma'aser Kabbalah, in short, as the Rambam writes in Hilchos Talmud Torah, is a branch of the Gemara. Gemara should refine your mind and lead directly into Limud Kabbalah, including to learn, Ma'aser Merkava. Right, so when you learn Kabbalah, did you learn Mikra? Did you learn Mishnah? Did you learn Talmud? This Medrash says, it seems probably the source of the Rambam, that the Rambam paskins that, in which category of Limud is Kabbalah? It is in the category of Talmud, right? So as I was going to the conference, the conference, no, Pashal, Yoshim, Voiskim, Batar, Metzim, Madin, Roy, Vogim, Hamon, Talmud. They see this great learning. Kisek for Echu Omed. How does my divine throne, my throne of honor, how does it stand? Chashmal Echu Omed. These Ruchni entities called Chashmal. How do they stand? Barak Echu Omed and the lightnings that the Nevi'im describe seeing. How do they stand? Kruv Echu. Where do the Kruvim stand? Kulam and greater than all them. How does my kiseh covered stand? Laser ruach mishamish b'choshamas, into which directions to go on Sundays. That's my honor. That's my grace, Hashem. When people learn Kabbalah, which comes through really learning Gemara. Zuadori, Yafi, this is my beauty. Shabani Makir is Kavodi Bamida, as well as that my children know my glory, which Chochma Sakabal discusses, in this measure. Right? Allah Amar on a guy like that, right? This limud rather. On this, David said in his wisdom, Ma Rabu Masech Hashem. How great are your deeds, Hashem? That's Chochma Sakabala, which could honestly analyzes the Maaseh Hashem. And that comes through really learning Gemara. So Mikana Rabbi Shmuel, from here Rabbi Shmuel used to say, Ashri Talmid Chacham Shem Mishamer Limuda Biaro. So therefore, fortunate is the Talmid Chacham that properly preserves his limud in his hand. Kadeshelo, that's referring to all his limud, because like we said, you get fahered on everything, when you go up, when you face divine judgment. So you should have something to answer God on the day of Judgment Day. Okay, so you get tested on everything, so you should really learn everything and memorize everything, so you could, proudly answer God's inquiries as to your learning on Judgment Day. L'kach ne'emar, and therefore it says, l'chaim shomer musar, right? A path, right, to life for he who upholds, who guards ethics, right? So that's the Torah. Then you want to be shomer musar. You got to be constantly learning. But if a person abandons his learning and leaves it, masigo busha klimim, then always full. Oh, he has a lot to be embarrassed of on Yom Hadin. Forget about the gedama you get, the embarrassment of when God asks, "Did you learn anything?" Right? The embarrassment is so. So busha also klimim. And therefore says, a person who abandons rebuke goes astray. So now what do you mean he goes astray? Akash will send him astray. Hashem will send him away. Ad kan l'shono. This is all the lashon of this medrash and mishlei. Was it medrash and mishlei? Yes, I think it was. Yeah. Okay. All right, so next paragraph. So it comes out that the epitome, of knowing Chochma Satara is to come through real Gemara learning, to come to know Maisa Merkava and all the other things mentioned over there. So wait a minute. If so, that means that all these things, knowing Kabbalah, right, also helps us do mitzvahs. Parshas Yisro, right? So like it says in the Zohar in Parshas Yisro, right? All the mitzvahs are hanging above. Every mitzvah has its shirish, right, in the in the higher planes, in the map of reality. Right, has its place in the totem pole of reality. These are the words of Zohar. The Tanina that we learn, all the mitzvahs Torah, as it were, unite with the body of the king. So I wanted to avoid talking about this, but what can I do? The Zohar that the Reishis Chochma brings forces me to steer into this, right? Right? The Shir Koma that we refer to, which is I wanted to teach it as, which is true, that it's the map, it's the map of reality, right? It's the setup of reality. But now Shir Koma also means like the how things stand. And it looks like a person. It looks like a person, right? And this, they're spoken about in a lot of our Sfarim, including the Rambam more in the Vuchim. But the Nefesh Chaim talks about this extensively in Shar Aleph, right? Reality looks like a person, right? But of course, it's now, because a person is itself Melokim, so he's a microcosm of all that exists, and ergo, if you see the big picture, if the Adam is a microcosm of all that exists, that means if also you could look at all that exists, it will look like a big person. Now, this person is, is not Chas v'Shalom God's essence, but it is God's glory, and it's called it's God's glory that you are supposed to glorify, and adorn, decorate, optimize with your Torah and mitzvahs. It's God's glory, but it looks like a person, so it's called the king, but because it represents God's kingship. Now, why does it represent God's kingship? Because over who is he king? He's king over the world. So this represents the entirety of the world as governed by Hashem, right? That the whole world is kvoidai. The whole world is malchusa. So we refer to the setup, the framework of reality as the melech, because it's what the Rebbe Shem administers. It is God's glory, and it's how God appears to us. How do we see God? We see him through the Bria. We see him mitzad how he administers the Bria. So for all these reasons, the Shir HaKaima is called the Melech, right? Not that it's God from it. It's not the essence of God. It's not the essence of God. It's not the essence of God. Can't emphasize that enough. But it is, a representation of God's kingdom, because the Bria is God's kingdom. So we refer to the entire reality as the Melech, right? Because he reveals to us. He is revealed to us through that framework. What do we know about God? We know how he creates us and he administers us. That's what we know about him. Right, so everything that we know about God is mitzad how he administers the world, right? And the whole world was kol mashra. So for all these reasons, the Shir Kaima is called the Melech, right? And everyone knows it's not the essence of God. God has no body in any way, shape, or form, but it's called the Melech. So right? All the mitzvahs of the Torah, they unite with the body of the king. Minhom Bereisha the Malka, there are some mitzvahs that reach the head of the king. And when on Megufa, that in the body of the king, because like I said, the Shir Kaima, I should further explain, even when I said the Shir Kaima looks like a person, it means in prophetic vision looks like a person. It itself doesn't look like anything, because Ruchnius doesn't look like anything. Ruchnius does not look like anything either. Ruchnius also has no physical form, right? It just means in the prophetic vision, when the Nevi'im see the Shir Kaima, it looks like one massive person. The Shir Kaima being no span of reality. So they'll see that there's certain olamas that in prophetic vision look like the head of the king. There's certain olamas and dimensions that in prophetic vision, B'mara Nevuah, look like the body or look like the arms, look like the legs. And that's all in prophetic vision. There is no physical form. It just looks this way in through the lens of Mara HaNavua, right? Which I believe we discussed. The Midah of Malchus called Tmunas Hashem. Biad Nevi'im Adame, right? So it looks like So when a Navi sees the Shir Kaima and he sees the mitzvahs, how they affect the Shir Kaima in prophetic vision, it doesn't look like anything physically, but in prophetic vision, in Mara Nevuah, where it's all mashal, so it's like certain they see the mitzvahs, certain mitzvahs tied to the head, certain mitzvahs tied to the body. Uminhain, and there's some mitzvahs. Bidei Malka, the arms of the king. Those are the legs of the king. There's no mitzvah that's outside of the body of the king. Again, the body of the king being a synonym for the Shir Kaima, which is the map of reality itself. And Bimara HaNavua, it looks like a person. And if the Navi Bimara HaNavua, through prophetic figments, for lack of a better word, prophetic images, that the Navi knows that what he's seeing doesn't really look like that. The figments in his mind are Mesholim, right? So in the way that the figments of the mind, Bimara HaNavua looks like a huge person, and that's called the king, because that's Malchuso Yisbarach, because the king, God is our king, right? We know God as the Borei Umayik. That's how we know God. And we know that the essence of God is even beyond that. But it's just, the world that God administers, and He wants us to participate in its tikkun. And you see how which the mitzvahs reach and fix or adorn which part of the Shir Koma. Again, it all looking like this purely B'mara and Nevuah. But also there's not a single mitzvah that is outside of the Gufa de Malka. All the mitzvahs, no mitzvahs just like, stam. You just get schar for doing it, but the mitzvah doesn't reach anywhere. It's not mitake. No, every single one of the Tarek mitzvahs, has its place in the Shir Koma, where it goes there, it either fixes it, it refines it, it optimizes it, or it adorns it. And every mitzvah has its place in the Gufa de Malka, right? All right, so therefore, ergo, you put this Zohar together with that Medrash and Mishnah, you get the message. You got to learn Yom V'Layla to come to Ma'aser Merkava, and we know Ma'aser Merkava, which is the Shir Koma, right? What do you know as a result of that? You know how mitzvahs make a difference and where which mitzvah fixes what. You understand why there have to be Taryag mitzvahs, not more, not less, to be mitakin reality as it truly is. So it comes out that the tachlis of your learning, which is to get to Ma'aser Merkava, is also there to understand how mitzvahs really make tikkunim and where they make the tikkunim, and you have that kavanah invested when you do the mitzvah, and it enhances the mitzvah. Okay, so now so now also don't ask on Chas Shalom on Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. This discussion is going back on what we learned, that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and his Chavreim used to just go out of town just to meditate with their learning, which would make it sound like they for lack of a better word, neglected or underemphasized doing mitzvahs because they went out to, that's it. So that obviously not. And even if there were certain mitzvahs they couldn't do because they were out in isolation, they were always being lomin amanas. And also don't ask, don't say that, God forbid, the Chabur of Rashbi, they were not involved in Gemilas Chasadim. Right? Yeah, they're a bunch of isolationists, didn't want to have anything to do with anybody, and they neglected, the big mitzvahs of Gemilas Chasadim. No, not true. Sure, Parshas Balak says in the Zohar, Parshas Balak, unbelievable. It's safer. You can't go two lines without another Zohar. I'm exaggerating, but only a little bit. And that's why many reasons why I chose this book for this time. Shama Parshas Balak says Parshas Balak, which is Kuf Pei Vav Amid Aleph in the standard editions of the Zohar. Chelek Gimel Kuf Pei Vav Amid Aleph. So Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yehuda, who were members of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai's Chabura, Nishtatfu B'Gemilas Chasadim. Right? They had chesed projects together. The Chabur of Rashbi, even though they're engaged, in learning, going into isolated places in Sisrei Torah, they also had their chesed projects. So they made sure to have their chesed projects, even though sometimes because of their learning they didn't read Shema, they didn't learn Krishma because Isik b'mitzvah, Pater mitzvah, whatever it is, whatever the cheshbon is, but they still, even if they were so engrossed in learning that they didn't read Shema, they still did Gemilas Chasadim. They had their chesed projects. Zel Shono. Right, and this is the lashon of the Zohar. Right, Amru. Right, they said, to the, I believe it's the Yenuka, the real Yenuka, the Yenuka of the Zohar. Right, it was the son of Rav Hamnuna Saba. The Yenuka, it's in Parshas Balak. It's all about the Yenuka. Right, whatever. Not to be confused with, Okay, enough said. Amru for sure, this is the case that we did not reach Shema. Maybe the Yenuka could smell on them or see on them that they didn't reach Shema. It's like a wonder. It's a wunderkind. like a wondrous child, an amazing Eloi that knew tremendous sodas and also was very highly spiritually sensitive. So he sensed that they did not read Kriya Shema. So I want to say I didn't say good because they were Isaac and Gemilas Chasodim. They didn't lay in Shema. No, now it could be that I was confused. Let me. You know, we find that the Tanoim sometimes didn't daven, sometimes not even for a whole 30 days. But of course, because tefillah, you got to have a settled mind, and they were Isaac in learning, and their head was into learning. They didn't have a head for tefillah, and that's halacha, by the way. We daven every day because we're not mechaven anyway. But back in the good old days when they're mechaven, if their head was just so caught up in learning, they didn't daven. But Kriya Shema Vada they did do, because the Kriya Shema is, at least for the Deiraisa, it's just one pasuk. Like Gemara says in Brachas, whenever you used to go like this, that's when you said Shema. And then he would also be Yotzei, also the Chiv of Mitzrayim, by Shtuping and saying about Yitzias Mitzrayim in the Shir. All right, so Vada they did that. But that's, if to shtup the Shema together with your learning. But if you're Isaac and Gemilas Chasodim, you're potter from Shema. Because Isaac mitzvah, potter mitzvah. Right? That's the din of Isaac. Yeah, so I have to, Talmud Torah isn't potter from Kriya Shema, but being engrossed in Talmud Torah, it makes you have a legitimate excuse not to daven if your head is just caught up in your learning. Right, but it's not a patur for Kriya Shema because Kriya Shema is just the second. Shema Yisrael Hashem Hashem Echad Roshen Kol Machzil on that, right? But when you're maush involved in Chesed, you're patur for Kriya Shema because of Isaac Mitzvah patur Mitzvah. That's what they told the Yanuka, right? Vadeachu, you're right. We did not daven. We didn't say Kriya Shema. But you know why? Because on this day we were busy in making a chassid, making a chasana for a chassan and kala. The chassan kala didn't have what they needed. And it looked like they were going to push off the wedding because they couldn't pull things together. There was no other person to take care of them, to make the, make up the commitments that they committed to each other and make the wedding. And we were mishtadol for them to help them, get to the chuppah, put everything in order so they get to the chuppah. So we did not read Shema on this day, and because Isaac b'mitzvah, potter mitzvah kol shono. Right. So the main point is they were engaged in chesed, even if they would go on these isolationist, missions, just to go off to the Idra. And God, they did not, they were not misalk themselves from doing chesed. Right? Akol shono. So this is Lashon Zor, right? Also, so now this is chesed, but even other mitzvahs, the Zohar and Parshas Tetzaveh said, right, that Rabbi Norai and his friends, they were also very ascetic. They're off in the desert or in forests, meditating. They're in the desert because on 7th month on Tishrei they would actually come back to the city to do mitzvah sukkah. So don't say that Rashbi and all the big Mekubalim ever neglected in any way doing mitzvahs b'maisa. All right, let's do. All right, we'll do one more, but he's going to go on this sugya with a lot of zars, proving his point, that they never neglected mitzvahs b'maisa. Rabbi Elazar, Parshas Vayishlach, so Rabbi Elazar says in Zohar, in Parshas Vayishlach, Zel showed this his words. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak were going on a trip. On the road, Umatas Ma Zimna the Kriya Shema. It came the time for Kriya Shema. Come Elazar Kriya Shema. Vitzai Rabbi Elazar got up, read Kriya Shema, and also davened. V'shar Ma'aser Shema Nogea Ma'aser did every other thing that's Nogea to the mitzvahs masios of the day. Those are the Arichos. We have throughout Zohar that the Chevra of Rav Shbi, they were very, very righteous, very medactic, and did a lot of good things. Umistaberly, right? Right. So now it seems to me, right, to balance it with all the Zars, it seemed that they used to go on these long isolationist trips and just be Isaac and Torah. So it says Reish Chochma to make sense out of their, get the big picture of what their Shita was and to balance all the different Ma'amore, Zora, Hazor together. That Rishon Bar Chai and his Chaverim, they held like the Yerushalmi, being him Talmud Kol Maisa, right? Right? Is do you do the what comes first, learning or mitzvahs in Maisa? So Kvarim Aliyas base Arim Belud. So the Yerushalmi says Yerushalmi and Chagiga, right? Right? That they already they already took account and they decided after a head count in Aliyas base Arim and Lud, right? Took a head count, decided Talmud Kol Maisa, learning comes before Maisa. In case of Amri Hada Atat Omar Sheyesh Mi Sheyase Avo Im Ein Shah Mi Sheyase Hamaisa Kodem LeTalmud Ad Kan Leshono. Right. So now the right. So the Yerushalmi says, I think it's also the halacha in the Rambam. Talmud comes before action. Talmud comes before action. So I guess he's saying that they held like this first shita, Talmud Kono Maisa, but of course you could do both. You do both, Talmud Kono Maisa, but of course we paskin like the Rabban the Kasrin that says that Maisim that someone else could do. But if someone else can't do the Maisa is called the Talmud Akal Shono. So what I'm guessing he's saying is that Rishon Bar Chai and the Chaverim, that sometimes they learned and did not do Maisim, but he's proving that they never totally neglected Maisim because they just held Talmud Kodem LeMaisa like the first Lashon, right? Like the commotion Ninu space Orim, but we pass like the other Lashon in Yerushalmi of the Rabban and the Kasrin. The Rabban and the Kasrin that say, which is what the Ram brings Hilchos Talmud Torah, that which we say Talmud Kol Maisa is if the Maisa could be done by other people, like the Chasodim, and there's someone else to do it. But if not, then the Maisa is Kodem Talmud. Okay. All right, we're going to stop here, but next time he's going to go deeper into what they were doing, how they used to go on these trips, leave everything behind, and go on these trips just to learn and to learn on the road. The big tikkun that there's that's the sugya we will do next. Okay, the koach of the author and the koach of the zars that he brings us, all comes through tshuva shlema. We'll be fraught with all the zars that we learn. We should see ukmei shchinta me'afra. And Yifkud min Galusa Barachamin. Mamash b'meher b'yameinu.